Okay guys, got the Dragon here again. This video is mainly going to be about my customer's SSR 125. I've been waiting for some parts on this. I didn't shoot a video yet. But basically, he does a lot of riding. This is a good customer of mine. I work on his car. He's got a nice little Mercedes. Do some work on that. He's got a bunch of bikes. He rides a Husqvarna 310, real nice bike. He's got YZ 125. He's got He's got a Royal Enfield 1200 Bandit. He's got a bunch of nice bikes. Real good customer. But anyway, he wanted to know what was going on. Said it wouldn't start. This or that. And what happened was, young boy was riding it. Apparently laid it over in the woods on a trail. He walked out. They went back and got it, and they started up and rode it, and they didn't realize that all the oil had run out of the engine. And so what happened was, just imagine what would happen. It seized up. So oil starvation. Luckily, they must have shut it off just in time, actually. I don't think it stopped running. I think they shut it off and then it wouldn't start. And it just got the top end. So let me get my little flashlight. Sorry about the lighting. My big light blew earlier, and my bulbs are over at the other shop. So I'm just down here in the basement. So yeah, the cylinder, everything got chewed up. The worst part was that the wrist pin was actually welded inside this cast piston, and you can see that color's not just from seizing up. That color's, I had to heat it with a torch and press it out to keep from ruining the rod on the engine. So yeah, it was tough. It didn't want to come out easy. It was stuck in there. So the customer just wanted to know, hey, is this motor worth putting a top end on, or do I need to order one of those ones for $300 and some and just slap it in there? I initially said, just the top end. We got this kit right here. For $56. It comes with the piston, the gaskets, the rings, new clips, and new valve seals. I'll go ahead and I'll talk about that, but I'm going to also put new valve seals in and lap the valves in the old head. We'll talk about that. The kit seems like it's really good quality. I ordered it on eBay and it came from X-Man Moto Parts. But the one thing I want to talk about I didn't like is they shipped it with the piston inside of that cylinder. So this thing's been bouncing around from wherever it's made, Taiwan, Hong Kong, I don't know, inside of there. And sure enough, just as I suspected, it was scratched up pretty good. Okay. Now, is that a problem? Yes, it is a problem. Am I going to be able to fix that without a problem? Yes, I'm going to be able to fix that without a problem. I'm going to treat this piston just like I do all the other aluminum that I polish, and I'm going to fine sand it, get all that out. You can't feel it. You might be able to barely tell. Maybe a lady's finger could. My fingers are kind of calloused from working all the time, but you can't really tell it's there. So it's going to sand and polish real easy. It won't be a problem. The rings are actually what seals it. There was a tiny little mark inside the cylinder. A little scuff mark you can see down in there. Not where I sprayed the oil on it, because that's the first thing I did. I soaked it in oil before I even moved the piston, because I knew. So yeah, there's a little wear mark there, but I think it's just in the cross hatching. And once the rings start seating, that'll disappear. So that's just the cross hatching rubbed off. So I think we're good there. That's what matters. Make sure we get the rings on with no problem. I'll polish all that up, and then we'll be good to go. So yeah, this video is going to be about doing the top end on this SSR 125. I'm going to try to pause it and do it in stages for you. One thing I want to talk about, I kind of get rambling on and forget, but basically the customer said, hey, I just want to check and see if it's worth building like I was telling you about, or do I need to get another one? So I just did a real quick tear down, and what I mean by that is I didn't even clean this thing off, number one. That's the first thing you do if you're doing engine work. So I didn't do that. I didn't take the tank off. I didn't take the seat off. I just took the carburetor manifold off, left it hooked there. Everything's on it. You would normally take all this off backwards, yank the exhaust off. So basically, pull the exhaust pipe, yank the manifold off, and take off these 4 nuts on the studs, and the top end came off, and I was able to tell him, hey, the bottom end's good. I checked the crank, I'm sorry, the rod on the crank, no play. There's nothing in the bottom of the engine yet. They caught it just in time. But like I said, the problem I did have was the pin was froze in the piston. It wasn't froze in the rod, but the wrist pin was frozen in the piston, and I had to heat it up and press it off without doing any damage there. It was a little tricky, but I got it. It finally got it hot enough. It popped out. Everything went good. So that's why if I knew from the get-go that we were just going to do this top end, I would have power washed this off, cleaned it, and did it the right way, because now what I got to do is clean all this without getting any contaminants in the engine, which I will. It just makes it a little bit harder this way, but we didn't know that until we tore it down, and we didn't want to spend a lot of time, because like I say, he could get another motor for a little over $300, and in a couple hours you can pretty much swap it out. So you got to watch yourself. You don't get too much labor in a top end on a Chinese bike that you can just buy an entire motor for. So that's the whole point. If this was something different, we would be going a different route. So anyway, that's your explanation. And this is going to be a pretty long video, I guess. I don't know. It depends how I film it. Again, I'm down here in tight quarters. That's why it's so close up. My back's up against the bench. And as you can see, I got the GS 850 Brat project over there. And then I'm going to talk about this later. I come across this Peugeot antique French bike I was hoping it was worth thousands, but it's only worth a couple hundreds, I think. But anyway, I'm going to clean that up and get that done. But let's get back to this SSR 125 top end. Okay, guys. So, yeah, not much here, but what I did was I polished the inside of the rod really good. Like I say, I fine sanded it, and then I actually took polishing compound and polished it so there would be no friction or anything on there from the previous damage, and the pin slides real easy, but it's not loose. You can't wiggle it or anything like that. So that's very important, because that's what really probably caused this situation. That got hot first and locked up, and then the piston basically rubbing one side, and the lack of oil did it in. So anyway, now I'm going to finish cleaning up that piston, and I'll be right back to you. Okay, guys, like I was talking about, the piston had some scratches in it. So basically what you want to do is just make sure there's no raised surfaces and it's not rough or anything. The rings are what actually seals the piston in the cylinder. So that's really what matters. Yes, you don't want this part all scratched up like this one, because it'll be like sandpaper in your cylinder. So what you want to do is just get it polished down to where it's absolutely smooth. You might still be able to see some marks, but what that is they're a little bit deeper, but as long as you get the ridges polished off, you'll be fine. They don't come in contact with the cylinder or anything like that. So yeah, polish that up. No more scratches on there. So that piston's good to go. I already know it's tight in the cylinder because they shipped it that way. That's what caused the scratches. So anyway, paused it again. So now I got to get these parts cleaned up. The base of the engine cleaned up, so I can get the gaskets and stuff on. And then what I'm going to do also, which is always a great idea, I don't care if you don't have many miles or many hours on it or anything, but it's always good to do new valve seals and lap the valve. So this is the original head. We're going to reuse it, obviously. And the valves have a little bit of deposit on it. A little bit, especially that exhaust, if you see. So there's no telling. And if you can see, there's a little bit of, you see that, let me come over here a little bit better. Sorry about the lighting again. But if you look down in there near the valves, see it's a little wet. That's because I squirted some stuff in the intake to see if the valve was sealed, and you can see it's not. So that's another reason. You get carbon built up on them. what happens is you shut the engine off, and say you burned a little oil and some other gunk, and you shut the engine off, and that stuff drips down on the valve, and say the valve's open, it's left open for a while, so it gets hard. So the next time you start it, the valve has hard stuff on it, and if you don't get that off or what have you, then it just starts building up and building up. So it's not only on this side, it's also down in the seat. So that's what happens. So you take them out, you lap them with some compound, some grinding compound. That reseals the seat, and then you go in the top, and you'll see, I'll show you this a little bit later. I'll pop these springs out that are down in here, and there's seals on there, and you put new seals on it, and that way it doesn't burn any oil and it don't smoke or anything. So anyway, that's kind of a broad explanation there, a little choppy, but I've said it so many times on videos, and you can check out some other videos about it. This one's just going to actually be about doing it. So, all right, guys, stay tuned. SSR 125. I'm going to pause it and try to keep going. If not, for some reason, then you might have to go to the second part of this video, because sometimes I accidentally stop it. So, all right, guys, stay tuned. Okay, guys, back on the same video, but the SSR 125. So like I was saying, I want to lap these valves and put new seals in them. So in order to do that, these are your rocker arms here on the shafts, and the rocker arms on the tip of the valve. It's really hard to see in there. Sorry about the light, but you'll see here in a little bit. Down in there is my spring and my keeper and all that. So I got to remove the rocker arms so I can get my spring compressor on there, so I can take this valve out, lap it, and put a new seal on it. And to do that on these little motors, you got to take this side cover off. And since I'm by myself doing this, I'm going to pause it, and I'll be right back. Okay, so take your little lock nut, little keeper, and loosen it off your rocker arm stem. So you take pressure off of the rocker arm, which releases the pressure off of that pin, and then whatever you want to put in there, grab this little bolt here, and then I'll just tilt it sideways, and then I can pull out that pin. Sorry, I'm watching the head, not the camera. Pull out your pin, and I usually try to lay them in the same direction I'm working on that side. Oh, sorry. Let me switch hands. Sorry, guys. Then you can grab this rocker arm. Boom. Okay, same thing. Put that with the pin it goes with. And then right there is, like I was telling you, there's your spring. That's the tip of your valve right there you're seeing. The two little half semicircles next to it, that's your keepers. And your retainer. I'm sorry, keepers. And then your retainer is right under there, and there's your spring, if you can see in there. Sorry, not very good, crappy video, guys. Anyway, there's your spring, your valve stem going up through it, and down inside of there, as you'll see in a minute, and I've showed you on other videos, inside of that spring is this seal. That's an oil seal. So oil comes up in the top of this engine to lubricate all these parts. It's the most critical part of the engine, because it's the highest and needs to be lubricated. A lot of parts in here are going really fast. So in order for that valve to go up and down, there's got to be a way to seal between the valve, all this oil, the valve stem, and the inside of the combustion chamber, where you don't want oil. You don't want oil in your combustion chamber. Some two-strokes do. I mean, they all do. But anyway, you don't want oil in here, because that'll cause smoking and buildup and poor performance and all kinds of stuff. So in order to do that, they put that seal in there, and that's what you have to replace. Anytime you do this, you should replace the seals. But that's where it's at. Rambling on explanation, but you get the idea. So I'm going to proceed. Stay tuned. Okay, guys, this is what I've been after the whole time. Just trying to get down to the springs so I can compress them and pull out their keeper and retainers, and get to the seals that are on the inside. And also, like I say, I will be lapping them valves, so I have to get a get a way to get in there to do that. So this is what you're trying to achieve. Sorry about the terrible lighting and the rambling of this and the last part. Straight down is your cam. Can't see the lobes because it's turned down, but there's the lobes. Okay, got a little mark there. They're not bad. Gonna clean that up too. Yep, that's what you do. You clean that stuff up a little bit, polish it a little bit, and longevity and better performance. So you do all that stuff every time you get in an engine if you can. Polish anything that should be polished. All right, guys, stay tuned. Get these valves out. Okay, again, bear with the lighting. Just kind of show you what I got set up here. This spring compressor. So one end's on one end of the valve, and then your other end, like I say, bear with my lighting. Let me turn it around here a little bit. It's got a little piece that goes over top of the spring, and if you look down in there, see the top of the valve stem like I showed you. Hang on now, it doesn't want to focus. And then you can see the two half circles. Oh shit. There you go. Look down in there. I'm going to compress the spring down and release those two half circles. Take those off. Release the tension, and then the spring comes off and the valve comes out. Sorry. Hope you can see that. Terrible video, but you'll get the idea. All right. Stay tuned. Okay. Now you can see springs out. There's the little keepers, retainers, and take those out, and the spring comes right out, and then there's your valve. Okay, that's the top of the valve, so we're going to push that out. Now all you got to do, like I say, is just stick your finger in there and push that valve out. Boop, and then you can reach in there and grab it, pull it right out. So there's your valve. That's how that works. Many videos on YouTube. Don't go by this one. This one's got some deposits on it. It's going to love getting them off. So yeah, we're going to clean all that up. Clean that seat up. Clean all that crap off of that valve. This thing's going to run way better, way more efficient. Okay, so yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get back to, I'm going to pop this other one off, and I'll get back to you here in a second. Okay, valve springs are out, valves are out, and there's that elusive valve seal down in there that I tell so many people about. Such a critical component. So let me zoom back out. Sorry, guys. Yeah, it's right there. And as you can see, this one, well, maybe you won't see because of the lighting, but there's a little rubber piece in there on the end. Really hard to see. There you go. As you can see, that one looks a little rough. A little dried up, shriveled. And you see all that oil laying in there? So that goes down in there. Goes out the exhaust pipe. And then onto the valve. And that's what you end up with. No, that is not burnt oil, because the oil would most likely just burn away nicely. May leave a little soot or something. That's what you call additives, filler, junk. Look at that. Yikes. So yeah, that thing was leaking. That valve seal was leaking, and that's what it was doing to that valve and the inside of the engine. Look at that valve. So that's why it's so critical. Had to be smoking like crazy there towards the end. But anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be replacing that seal. The one on the other side don't look bad, but we got two new ones, so we're going to be replacing them. And stay tuned. I'll get right back to you. So basically, guys, the seal just snaps over that piece right there, the metal. You just pop them off, pop them on. They just kind of snap. They click in place. That's really about it. That's all it is. So sometimes they stick. These feel like they're made out of plastic, but they're usually metal. The new ones look like they're metal, and then they're rubber for the seal. so they stay in place. Sometimes they're hard to get off. You can't even pull them off. You have to kind of cut them off. So on this particular model, they popped off real easy. So I'm going to be replacing them, but not yet, because first I'm going to clean up the valves and seat those really good, lap them up. And then when I'm done, I'll clean all this up and then rebuild the head by putting the valves in, the springs and the seals and all that stuff back in. So first some cleanup. All right, guys, stay tuned. Okay, guys, it's getting a lot of time on this video here, so I'm going to stop it. I'm trying to, I mean, I should have been done this job already, but obviously I'm going to charge the guy for the amount of time it takes, not the amount of time I'm taking on it. Could do a really nice job for him, but the video is just to help some people that don't know how to do it or need explanation or wondering what the hell I'm talking about sometimes or what have you. So I'm going to stop this one here and then make another part or 3 parts or whatever it takes. So appreciate y'all watching, and check out video number 2 for the SSR 125 complete top end. Thanks for watching. Dragon says, peace out.